The great Brad Katona joining me now on MMA Ireland. Brad, you're getting back in the cage. It's been a year. What have you been up to?
Training, man, and I guess living with this pandemic, like all of us, So, yeah, it's been a crazy year. I can't say just for myself, but for everyone. But yeah, this past year's been a big year of development. I feel like it's not like I'm the one who needs a fight to be in the gym. I'm in the gym all the time. I've been pushing full fights as much as I can. There's just so much power you have when nobody's allowed to leave the home. So, yeah, I've been training, I've been improving, and I'm really excited to show it all off. Finally, it's been a year.
You're facing Stipe. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name in EMC 6. This is for a title, correct?
Yeah, it's for a title. So 5 rounds. Very excited about that. Nobody really wants to do 5 rounds. Obviously, 25 minutes of doing anything is difficult. But yeah, like with the title, I'm a sentimental person, so it'd be nice to have that.
So let's go back a little bit to when you got your big break on Tough. Tell me first off how you got the call and how you got involved in the Ultimate Fighter.
It was kind of neat. I moved here it was November 10th. I got here, and I had a meeting with John, and we were talking, and he's like, okay, we'll put you on the local scene, get a fight or two in, and then talk to some big promotions, because I was 6-0 at the time. And then all of a sudden, a week later, he comes up to me. He's like, hey, there's tryouts at featherweight for undefeated fighters if you want to do that. I know what we just talked about, how we weren't going to try to go into a big promotion, but there's this opportunity. I think it's good, and if you can swing it, I suggest going down. So for me, I just moved from Canada to Dublin, and money obviously wasn't flowing hugely.
Yeah, sure.
I my savings and so whatever I spent on a flight down to Vegas was kind of money I didn't have to float until I was getting established here. It was that was my cushion to get established, and maybe smartly, but skeptically, I went to the tryouts, and a teammate, Richie Small, went down as well, and thankfully we both got on the show. So it was kind of, that was, I think, around December 12th. So a month later, I just got here, had a meeting with John. A week later, it was about a couple weeks after that, I was booking a flight down to Vegas for 3 days. I think the tryouts were on a Monday. I arrived there Saturday night or something, and had a flight booked home for Tuesday. So I was only there for a couple days. Thankfully, then I stayed longer and went back in the new year and to start filming. So that was crazy. It was kind of everything worked out perfectly.
I ask this question to Pedro Carvalho every time I talk to him, even though I know the answer. It's never a different answer. It's a historical question. But what was it about Dublin and SBG that made you want to come? Because I understand that you probably had different options, when you were in Canada, or different options to move around Europe or America or whatever. What was it about SBG that made you want to join?
The year before moving, I came down here for a month to give it a shot first. It wasn't like all of a sudden from Canada was stepping foot in the gym. I just decided, I'll pick up everything and move. I went
that's what Pedro did, isn't it? He just showed up to the gym and was like, I'm going to be a world champion.
Yeah, he knocked on the door, but it's a little easier going from Portugal.
Sure, yeah.
It's going from Canada down. That's a little bit bigger step, Not speaking of any of the Portuguese MMA gyms, but there's only so much around the area, and it's what, a 2-hour flight.
It's pretty easy.
Moving away from everything. It's 6 hours difference when I call home, so that makes it a big enough difference where I'm just going to bed as people are getting started with their day. But yeah, I came here for a month. It kind of clicked with the gym and the training partners and John, most importantly, and with any athlete coach relationship, it's how you guys click. There's not one best coach in the world. It's the best coach for this for the individual. I thought John was world class, and I had teammates back home who had gone all over Canada, gone all over the States, and they always had kind of mixed reviews of the gyms they went. Some spoke very highly of them, some it wasn't for them, so decided to. I thought John's mentality, being an engineer myself, we had a similar mentality. I liked the stuff he was saying in interviews, and I just kind of, I thought we'd click. I really felt like we would, and came over here for a month. Absolutely clicked with the training partners. I realized, oh crap, this is like I knew it was a world class gym, but I was like, I think this is the best gym in the world, and it's the best gym in the world for me specifically. Just once again, those dynamics, and spent a year, worked away, and collected 3 more wins, and made the move. It was finally at that point in my career where I was 6-0, and the competition was going to rise up steeply. So I either stayed ahead of that curve and be here at SBG continually to improve, or start getting diminishing returns at home and eventually fall behind. So excited that I'm on that curve still, and things are looking good.
So you get to Vegas, you and Richie Smullen are there. I know that, that was a really exciting time for MMA in Ireland in general at that stage. It was, just after Conor had fought Floyd, is that correct? Or when you were doing your trial? So everybody was talking about SBG Ireland. Yeah,
it was. I'm not sure exactly all on the time, mm-hmm. but I believe that's about it. I believe that's around that time. It was just after that, I believe. So when did they fight? Summer, July?
Yeah, they fought in August. I want to say towards the end, maybe the start of September. But yeah, it was. But yeah, basically, Irish MMA was the big thing at the time. You get to Vegas, and you get through these tryouts. And going into that house, man, I don't think, obviously I couldn't do it because I'm not a good enough athlete. That's the reason I couldn't get in. But I also don't feel like I could do it mentally, to be away from everything in the world for that amount of time. And also, it's not like you're going away to go on Love Island or something cool, or something fun. Sorry, you're going to do, a show where you also have to compete with the guys you're living with. You have to fight them, beat them. You're looking to, really hurt these guys you're in the house with. It's a weird dynamic.
It is a weird dynamic, and I knew I'd do well. I knew it in those situations, just mentally, and I know that's easy to say, but I think if you listen to any of my interviews leading up to it, not like we could really do interviews, but even in the house, I don't know all what they showed. I haven't watched it since the first time it came out, but. I really thought I'd excel in something like that. Just the mental aspect of it. Take aside the abilities. We're all undefeated guys. We're all going to be good. That's just facts. But I knew mentally I could deal with it better than them. And I can't point to why. Mm-hmm. I think I'm able to put things into a good perspective. And I found a routine, and I'm able to switch off pretty easily. I'm able to separate myself from the gym quite easily. Some guys, even talk to teammates, say, "Oh, I'm thinking about fighting all the time." I'm when I have a fight coming up and it's exhausting. It's like I come home, I turn on the PlayStation, and I'm in a different world. I don't worry about it much. And I think going in with that mindset, where I found a routine, I tried to appreciate it. A lot of guys felt like, I deserve more than this. I shouldn't be in the house, or, I can't predict what they were thinking, but at least I was going, I'm on reality TV. I'm in Vegas. It's January or February, it's normally winter where I'm from. There's the sun. No, it's not hot, but there's the sun. I'm in a mansion. There's people doing my grocery shopping for me. This is cool. I've really embraced this is cool aspect. And I think that took what stress levels are 11 out of 10. It took it down to maybe a 9 out of 10. So it allowed me not to fatigue over the marathon, which was the weeks in the house.
Was there anyone in the house? I know that Richie Smullen probably wasn't as good at that aspect of it as you were, but was there anyone else in the house that was, that was really struggling with the whole being away from everyone? There's people there who have there's people there who have like young children, or people who's like, there have been people whose wives have been pregnant and going into labor when they've been on the show. Was there anyone in your season that was really struggling with the being in the house aspect?
Oh, I'm not sure it's easy to point to one of them specifically because there wasn't an incident
Right.
on my season. I know a lot of them talked about missing their girlfriends and missing everything. You know, I had my girlfriend over here in Ireland. We moved from Canada together. You know, of course I missed her, but I guess I just try not to complain about it. There's a lot of I miss this person, I miss this person. I'm like, yep. But you also on a reality TV series, which could change the course of your MMA career.
Well, I think the idea is that like if you can take this 3 weeks apart, she could end up being like Dee Devlin. You know, she's going to be a superstar. You know, so it's going to benefit you guys, and you're going to, in theory, guys,
there's so many people who say, "Oh, I fight for my family, I fight for this," and you know, if that's what you actually believe and that's what you're anchoring to. I've said it time and time before. I think fighting is a very selfish thing, and oftentimes I don't really believe you if you say you're fighting for other people. You know, if I had a young family and I really want to provide money and security, I'd get a job. You know, it's where I can check in 40 hours a week and collect a paycheck. The security would I think would be good for a family, but that's just my opinion. But a lot of people who were saying like they're doing this for them. Yeah, well, let's see. You know, I kind of thought this is an opportunity to set, you know, my girlfriend Katie and I up in here, really kickstart my MMA career, kind of put rocket fuel behind it and accelerate it. And so I didn't let I'm away from my girlfriend or I'm away from my family. Granted, I don't have young kids. That changes everything.
Sure.
But yeah, I've really let that. I kind of let that fuel me as opposed to drain me, you know, being away from, I was away from my family already. So it's not like that changed much. So maybe I went there with an advantage in that way. But yeah, if I had to leave behind kids or anything, I think that's where it changed it. But once again, it's a month, you know,
it's not the craziest.
It is small. It's small. It's a permanent memory, and it's huge when you're there. But when it's done, it's just a blip, you know.
And you fought Bryce Mitchell in it. That's crazy, you know, to think where things have gone on that end. It is weird because they mark him down as having a loss, but that's an exhibition bout. It doesn't really necessarily. The loss is to you, right?
Well, yeah, like you can call it what it is, like whatever you want, exhibition, whatever, you know. I fought Kyler Phillips first, and I won 2-0 with only momentum going my way. I fought Bryce Mitchell. I had a back and forth tilt with him, and then got the finish in the third round after probably being one apiece in the judges' eyes. Yeah, that's a 3-round fight, you know, and then I fought in the finale. So you call it what it is, like. We both stepped into the cage, and one person got their hand raised, and one person did. If it's not recorded on some people's cards, cool. If it is, cool. But we know what happened, and so I'm happy for Bryce. Really, like he's kind of got momentum behind him, and it always feels good when someone you beat is doing well, or someone who beat you. Like when any of my opponents do well, I don't think it like. I only hope good things, because if they beat me, I hope they're doing well. And if I beat them, it just helps me that they are, you know. And yeah, I believe in my abilities. So it's one of those where it's always nice to see my past opponents do well.
And was being in the UFC everything it was kind of cracked up to be? Obviously, financially, it's a lot better than fighting on these smaller cards here in Ireland or in Canada. But was it the dream come true that you thought it would be? You got 4 fights in the actual organization altogether?
Yeah, well, it didn't like. I'm not done by any means.
Right.
So I'm not looking back on it like, oh, that was a dream. You know, speaking of the people who work for the UFC, generally, I've had no problems with. They've been absolutely lovely people to deal with, at least on my end. You know, a lot of things were taken care of. There wasn't many headaches. You know, overall for me, I didn't have any issues. I can't say, you know, it all changes. Dream come true was you're a huge star, and you know, the biggest fight you have is just over money, and everything's catered to you. I have no complaints. If I needed something during fight week, I got it. Yeah, it was better treatment than I've ever had. I feel I can't speak to any of the other shows that I haven't fought in, like Bellator, ONE FC, or Brave, or any of those.
You can speak to Bellator. Everyone else in your gym fights there.
No, but I haven't gone through their fight weeks. With the UFC, all of the staff I talked to were fantastic and really nice people. So it ran smooth. My only headache as a fighter is being like, hey, when am I up? And then, we're going to have another intermission to sell more alcohol. There's always those issues on like the smaller leagues. But with the UFC, they were like, hey, you're up in 10 minutes. Sure enough, you're walking out in 10 minutes. It was well run. Like, they're pros at what they do. It was nice. It felt professional. I haven't been in the back for any of the bigger shows outside the UFC, but I'm sure it's all very similar where it's professionally done. They've done how many shows by now?
You fought Hunter Azur and Merab Devilish. Another name I'm not pronouncing.
Yeah.
These are not the kinds of losses that generally people get released over decision. Like, were you surprised when the release came?
Of course. Who wasn't surprised?
That's true.
I don't think it's just, and that doesn't make me hate the UFC. It's just not like they cut. I'm anti UFC or pro this, or it's one of those where, for whatever reason, business wise, they thought that was the right decision. I completely disagree with them. There's a lot of people who disagree with them, but what am I going to do besides prove them wrong? I can sit here and complain and say, they didn't know what I had to offer. I think they underplayed my wins in the house. All of a sudden they were exhibitions when they weren't really looked at like that before. I think that got downplayed pretty quick. And who knows on the business side of things what they needed to do. I don't know for certain exactly why I was released. It wasn't, obviously if I just kept winning and kept finishing, guys, you're not going to get released. Obvious. I didn't think I lost the fight to Hunter, but that is what it is. And before that I lost to Merab, who's now, top 10, arguably going to be after this fight, top 5, so it's you look at the guys I fought, man, I fought with some pretty good guys. I didn't get some of these underhand tosses like some other fighters have, and then take into account the Bryce Mitchell and the Kyler Phillips fight, who are now in the UFC, technically undefeated in the UFC besides me.
In theory.
Man, is it just? No. Do I have something to say about it? Yeah. Absolutely. And that's October 31st when I get a belt. I get to swing it over my shoulder and announce the world that I am how good I say I am.
It is interesting because I just don't see how it works. How did they tell you? Like, what is the process like? I assume that it's not one of the big wigs. I assume it's a smaller person calls you up and basically says that they've nothing for you.
How to happen?
Yeah.
Well, it was a pretty crappy Tuesday. I finished a jiu-jitsu practice. Sometimes jiu-jitsu practice, whatever practice doesn't go your way. You just have a bad day. I remember this specifically. I finished Lee Hammond's class there at that SBG, and I just sucked all class. I was just terrible. And I went to the locker room, and John was down in New York for Makwan and Milcani's fight, and he was going to talk to Sean Shelby about my next fight. Hopefully book it fairly soon after the September, because I was healthy, I was ready to go. And so in the conversation with Sean Shelby, he kind of got the news. Now, John's not in SBG. He's over in New York then. Mm-hmm. So he was going to wait till he came back and then have the conversation to me in person. Unfortunately, after that talk, I think a couple of days later, an email got sent out. So John who saw the email, I was getting tapped out in the jiu-jitsu class, was, he got ahead of it and he messaged me. He's like, I'm sure you saw the email. I talked to Sean, ridiculous if you ask me, but this is it. Sure enough, I checked my emails. There's the email you don't want to see. And bad day. Bad day.
So nobody actually picks up a phone and calls you and tells you. You get sent an email from Sean Shelby, or a message has to be passed through John Kavanagh, your coach. Nobody actually thought that it might be a good idea to talk to you, not even face to face, but over the phone.
Well, once again, and this isn't me badmouthing UFC or hopping in front of it, but they did have John had a conversation with the matchmaker. Mm-hmm. It's my coach, my manager at the time. He had a conversation with the UFC, and that's probably who it should go through first. They shouldn't pass through, let's say, management, if you will, and just call me up and say, hey, you're released. I think they went out to what was a contact speaking on my behalf. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of days later, legal department gets and sends you the email. It's I don't know what a conversation would really do at that point. It's already been had. He already talked to John. John can already explain it. It's not like I can go there and start crying and they're going to give me my contract back. There's not much. It's like I said, it's at the end of the day, it's business. I'm going to do what's in my best interest, and they're going to do what's in their best interest. And it sucks, but what do you do? I didn't have any power in that. I did everything I did. I went out there, I performed. If the judges want to give me the decision or not, that's not up to me. And then if the UFC wants to make that call, that's up to them. Unfortunately, that power is not in my hands. My job was to perform. I felt like I did. That's it.
And then the pandemic hits, right? So I'm sure there were other options for you. Shows getting cancelled left, right, and center. But you're back now. You're going to be back in the cage in a week and a half's time. Is that right? Halloween, is that the date?
On Halloween.
So you'll be back on Halloween. How does that fight come about? I mean, obviously, I joked about it earlier, but a lot of people would have expected, because you're in SBG, where there's, a countless amount of fighters who are in Bellator. A lot of people would have expected, you get let go from the UFC. Someone has a conversation, you end up in Bellator. How did it come about that you ended up fighting in EMC instead?
Well, the pandemic probably limits options. Mm-hmm. As well. Speak with management on what the best step was. I know Bellator is trying to get, if we're speaking just on the Bellator thing for a minute, Bellator obviously doesn't want to be known for an organization that just picks up ex-UFC guys.
Of course.
So we felt it would be in our best position to get a win.
Right,
and momentum. At the end of the day, whether I think the decisions went the right way or not, I'm coming off 2 losses. Mm-hmm. That's going to lower your stock no matter who you are. Let's get some momentum back and then see what the options are. And thankfully, with EMC, I have an opportunity to compete amid a pandemic. Not many people can say that. So it's a good opportunity. It's a well-run show. They want to put on a lot of events, so I have an opportunity to compete if let's say we don't get picked up by anybody larger. Mm-hmm. But I have an opportunity to fight for a title and then defend that title a number of times in the next couple months. So that's big for me, is competing and proving my worth. It's easy to say after a year of not fighting and amid a pandemic, you're not in the strongest negotiating position. Mm-hmm. Amid the top players, it's not like I can call up the UFC and be like, hey, Kyler Phillips is doing well, I beat him. They'd be like, well, yeah, get a couple fights, get some impressive finishes. Sure. My goal now is to make myself undeniable, and that's going to play out. That's going to help me wherever I decide to go after this. I go out, I have a great performance against Stipe, I get the belt. It's I walk out there, 10-second knockout, boom, crowd erupts. That's it. Huge momentum rush my way. if no top player wants me, I'm happy to compete for EMC again. You know, they've been great to deal with. So EMC wins in that regard. They get me and I get them, or they get me moving on to bigger things. You know, so it's a good relationship to have. It's what management thought was best, and I'm with a great management team in Paradigm. They know what they're doing. So
literally the best in the game, right?
I just worry about training. You know, I worry about training, then going out and competing. They're worrying about everything else. So, you know, I trust my team. I trust my coaches. I trust in the team behind me. So they thought this was the right call. I'm excited to be fighting. Never been to Germany before, so I get to go there, bring home a belt, and get that momentum going again. You know, this is really what it's about. Is it all stems down to make yourself undeniable. If I didn't lose the UFC, I'd be undeniable. I'd still be there. You know, my job is to go there, put on an impressive display, show that I am world class, and then everything takes care of itself.
Of course, yeah. And then we have to talk about the practicalities. You said you're training for a big fight. Obviously, recent government regulations the last couple of days have made that more difficult for sure. Where exactly do you? I know that Pedro's fighting for a world championship in a big organization. There are other fighters who have different things going on. How does that work for you? Are you classed as this elite sport, so you're able to get into SBG, or what's the deal for that?
You know, I'm not really sure how the elite sports works here, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm done training, man.
Yeah,
like I'm done. I'm a week and a half out now. I'm slightly overtrained. You know, it's time to start recovering, refueling, and getting ready for the weight cut. You know, so really for me, none of this really affects me.
Right.
Thankfully, it's just rolling out in time that I'm done. Like I finished my last session the other day, like of hard training. You know, it's done. We're in the clear. Thankfully, I don't need to worry about it. You know, I believe we'd be okay as elite athletes.
Right.
I don't know how classifications work, but I'm not too worried about it right now. It's my job is basically get sick and stay healthy. So like, don't get injured, don't get sick, and show up on weight. So that's where all my energy is going. It's timing wise, it worked out perfectly. I should be able to sneak this fight in before everything gets cramped down too hard.
Would this fight have been in danger if the government had taken Neffet's ideas on board 2 weeks ago? Would you have maybe had to pull out of the fight if it were level 5 a week and a half or 2 weeks ago?
Probably not. You know,
you would have found a way around
it. I've been doing this for 14 years now.
Yeah.
I know how to fight.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to fight. You know, let's say in training I got cut, and you know any other fight for the finale, right. I got cut 3 weeks out from that fight, so I couldn't really train with all that much contact. You know, so what's the difference? You're doing cardio, maybe you're doing pads or bag work, or you know, even going on full run. At that point, you know, if I had to look back 2 weeks ago, okay, there'd be some sprints happening. There'd be some people would see me sprinting down on the road, you know, probably with a really uncomfortable look on my face. But at that point, most of the skills are there. You're not really getting that much better in fight camp. You know, the bulk of it is kind of getting sharp and fit. But those skills are built year round. That's why I moved here to Ireland. I didn't just come here for my 8-week training camps or 6 weeks of a training camp. I came here year round to improve. And so that's where a lot of time, well, that's where your abilities actually develop is out of camp. In camp, it's sharpening up, getting your timing down, practicing winning, you know, and getting, you know, so thankfully I know how to do all that. And I'm sharp at this point. So it's like I said, now's the time where really it's not about burning calories or anything. It's about recovering. So I kick my feet up, play some video games, and kind of hibernating here.
You're certainly Stipe's toughest opponent in his career, from what I've seen on paper anyway. What have you seen of Stipe?
You know, I've seen a good number of his fights. I've seen his most recent 3 or 4, and he's well-rounded. He's kind of good everywhere. He has power, looks fit, but I think there's a major differential in the refinement and of our abilities. You know, he is a good athlete, but I think he relies on his attributes quite a bit. He relies on being strong and being fast and being athletic. Unfortunately, everyone I fought in the past 5 years has been strong, fast, athletic.
Yeah.
We're elite bantamweights and featherweights that I've competed against. And I consider myself quite an elite athlete in that regard. So if the best thing he brings to the table is attributes, you know, we can go attribute for attribute, and then the abilities are going to take over, especially this being 5 rounds. This is where the better man generally wins. The one with the better skills, not just the stronger, faster. This is the one who has the better skills. So it's just going to be a matter of doing the right thing longer than he does. And as soon as he slips up due to fatigue or lack of knowledge, that's where all of a sudden we're going to get that separation.
And are you finished with featherweight now? I know that you did the Ultimate Fighter in featherweight, but you much prefer fighting at 135, right?
Much prefer is tough. I much prefer to fight at featherweight, but I much prefer to fight bantamweights.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
I like the lifestyle around featherweight. I get to be fairly lean. I don't stress about weight. You know, I can kind of eat what most athletes would eat, you know, not weight class athletes, but most athletes geared 100% to performance. You know, I need to suck down a little bit to get a bantamweight. It's not the most enjoyable, but it's optimal, you know, and that's what I'm going for is to compete in my optimal division, the best division where I can be world champion, and that's bantamweight.
And you could theoretically at featherweight be fighting guys who are a whole lot bigger, who are cutting from, like, you know, a walk around weight of 170. Like, there are people at featherweight who might walk around on a bad and be 180.
They're gigantic.
Yeah.
Featherweights are gigantic. Bantamweights are a good size, but at featherweight I'd be giving up pretty much everything. I'd be giving up size. I'd be giving up reach. I'd be, you know, and with that extra strength and weight, you know, that all of a sudden plays into conditioning as well. You know, it's different moving around a 160-pound person versus a 170-pound person. You know, you're going to fatigue a lot faster moving around the heavier guy. So being the smaller guy, if I competed at featherweight, that doesn't play well even on the conditioning front all that much. So yeah, bantamweight's my home. That's where I really want to make a mark, and that's where I feel like I can. You know, this game, everyone's so good that you need every little advantage you can.
All right, Brad, thank you so much for your time. I have one more question for you about the gym you train in physically. Obviously, you came to SBG for that fight, or when it was back. Was it on the Long Mile Road? The facility that. You weren't there for the shed, basically, that John Kavanagh was in, but you were in.
I wasn't there for the shed, no, but I was there for what Long Mile Road when it was the yellow mats.
Sure, yeah. And now you are in essentially like a gym second only to the absolute elite of the elite, in the Monster out in Inchicore. Does that play a big factor in how you guys get your training, and does it end up playing a big factor in your fights in the end? Well, you haven't fought since that gym's been open, right?
Yeah, I believe I fought just before it opened.
Right. Yeah.
Or just as it was opening. Does it make a difference? I'd say no. You know.
Oh my gosh.
How many high-end elite boxers have you been to an old boxing gym?
Yeah.
Basically, it smells like sweat. Everything is worn out. It's all who's in the room. Right. You know, it's the coaches, it's the training partners, and it's the mentality. Obviously, I love being in a gym with a sauna and nice change rooms. That's all nice. That's all creature comforts. Do you need it? Absolutely not. Like, I need a gym that's fairly warm. Like, it's not working out outside, but fairly warm, preferably. And once again, that's a creature comfort. You know, I love it. It's nice.
Of course.
It's nice.
It is nice. If I ever exercised, I might go there. I don't know.
It's nice, man. I suggest it. It's a lot nicer. But do you need it? I can't say you need it. You know, they like Connor came up in the shed days and then long mile days. You know, so he won 2 belts, and I think he would have won 2 belts if it was in the shed or if it was on Long Mile Road or if it was on the space station. Like, it doesn't matter. Like the abilities. It's who's in the room. You know, I take an old one oak gym with one oak mats and rusty weights with the best training partners and the best coaches in the world than a shiny gym by myself. You know, it's all who's in the gym and the mentality in the gym, and this move only allows more of that, in my opinion.
And we won't end on that note. We will end on your prediction for October 31st. What is going to happen to Stipe?
I can't speak to what's going to happen to Stipe. For myself, I'm going to make myself undeniable. I'm going to show I'm elite, and Stipe gets to decide how he loses. You know, I don't get to go in there and say, okay, I'm going to knock you out, and he's going to be like, cool, we'll just stand and bang. He might shoot right away and fall into a guillotine, or I sprawl him out and I get on top and stop him there. It could be I catch him on the feet. You know, that's not up to me. It could be grind out a 5-round decision. You know. Preferably not. I don't want to go 5 rounds. That doesn't sound nice, but I know he doesn't want to go 5 rounds a lot worse than I do. You know, he doesn't want to do that. He can't keep my pace for that long, and so for me, it's what's going to happen is big things after this.
Brad Katona, I thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best against Stipe, and I look forward to watching you at EMC 6 and eventually when you end up back in the big leagues with, you know, the UFC or Bellator, whoever it ends up being. Thank you so much, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you.